Chapter 9 Chill of Night. Jensen, along with so many others, had nearly flung themselves over the port beam at what they'd just witnessed. "They took the captain!" Shouts of anguish echoed all about the ship. The black longship of Gukan sailed away. The distraction that had allowed him to escape was the very thing that ultimately brought his capture. It wasn't long before the ship was gone from view, lost to the fog and maze of tiny islands.
"Demons, man!"
Wigglebelly shouted.
"They're like giant sea serpents, all sneaky and black. I'm telling you, man, it's not right."
Jensen had finally ventured to the main deck once the sounds of battle seemed to have subsided. He had followed the captain's orders and remained with Starlina below. No words were spoken between them. They merely listened to the cacophony above, wondering with every dull thud if someone had fallen, friend or foe. "Stay here. I'm checking above," Jensen finally said, which of course Starlina completely ignored, following him anyway. Now she stood with the crew upon the deck, silent and pallid, her father's coat draped over her arm. "I'm so sorry," Jensen said. "We will retrieve your father." 3 seamen had also been slain in the battle, Tate and deckhands Elihu and Redvers. Their bodies were carefully wrapped in their hammocks by fellow deckhands Jonas, Clement, and Bert. Jensen saw Murdoch's saber lying upon the deck and stooped to pick it up. A boot stomped down in front of him. "No," said Yancey. "Nobody but the captain touches that blade as soon as he's back among us." Jensen nodded and backed away. "Aye, and haste the moment that he is." Starlina stepped between them and grabbed the saber. Yancey and Jensen stared at her with mouths agape. "You sailors and your codes," she said. The scowls of the surrounding crew deepened. She groaned loudly. "Ugh! You really mean to leave my father's sword lying upon the deck where it may be trampled upon or allowed to slide off the ship? I shall stow it safely in his cabin." After a long silence, Yancey shrugged. "That was my backup plan." "Milady," Jensen said with a light bow, "you might yet make a fine captain yourself one day." "Shut it, Jensen," she said. She entered the cabin, slamming the door behind her. "What now, Dippy?" asked Miles. First mate, Daubernown, Doyle, sir?" "Make full the sail and get us under way," ordered Daubernown, now in command. "We've still got a tailwind. It's high time we used it. Those devils will be headed for their berth in Gukan, and we'll be behind them." "Aye," Yancey agreed. "Make our exit while Rummy's crew is still preoccupied." "Keep a sharp eye all around us and men to the weapons," Rosh said. "We're not out in the clear yet." Taking stock of their increasingly dire situation, Jensen felt within himself a swelling sense of duty. "Sir," he said, "as we're down a bosun's mate, I should very much like to navigate us through these islets." Hookney gave a deep grunt. "Why? So we can turn up on the south side of Holbrook?" "I can pull us through here," Jensen said. "Casper?" "Your call," Daubernown replied.
"Could be useful, sir,"
Casper said.
"With us this close to land all around, it'll help for me to have eyes over both sides of the ship."
Yancey turned to Jensen. "Looks like you're a bosun's mate now. My only request? If you're going to muck it up, just go ahead and warn us." "I won't muck it up," Jensen said. It was the most certain he'd felt of anything since leaving Warvonia. "We'll also keep a watch from below," said Yvette. "And we'll have 2 oars at the ready, one at each side to help with any quick maneuvers." Daubernown nodded. "Very good, crew. Now, everyone, on the move! Captain Murdoch is depending on us!" Much valuable time had passed when the last of the interfering Gukanian scum finally screamed his last. To Garrick Rummy, defending his ship was not unlike protecting a castle. Try scaling his outer walls, and you might find yourself scalded to death by boiling oil or water or fire-hot sand. He was called Seadred for a good reason. He had lost many of his commissioned Grimkin army in the process. He'd be sure compensation for that got figured into his final price. Or perhaps he'd find a way to wring it from Murdoch. Or perhaps both. The soldiers of Gukan proved very proficient with their bows and arrows. It was not enough, however, for the flaming pitch-dipped spears and arrows Seadred's crew used to return fire. Despite their fierce reputation, the Gukanians clearly had not expected this merchant ship to be so heavily militarized. They died just as well as any other man, screaming all the way. Garrick spat over the side toward their incinerated enemy. As he turned, he was sorely vexed to find that the Queenie had managed to set sail and disappear into the fog. After a moment, he chuckled to himself.
Craven maggots. They've sailed off without their captain.
He looked about the deck, frowning.
Bring me Murdoch. It's time we be on our way.
The men of his standard crew scurried around, looking clueless.
Well, you stumbling, grog-soaked cockroaches. Where is he?
His eyes snapped to larboard, where there should have been stowed one of their rowboats. He ran to the side, looking to the water. All was calm and empty. He spun around, apoplectic with rage.
You useless, mangy swabs! Murdoch's escaped!
He turned back to the water, squinting into the fog. In spite of himself, he marveled at the possibility that fat old Murdoch had managed to row himself all the way back to his ship without being detected.
Let out the reefs, square the yards, and bring us about,
he ordered his crew. Loving a good chase, he smiled to himself, the fury already wearing off.
This might end up even better than I'd expected,
he thought, feeling quite satisfied indeed. Something poked delicately at Zale's face. A finger? A claw? A talon? He wasn't sure at first if it was real or imaginary. Groaning, cognizance seemed to return like a fog slowly lifting. Another poke at his cheek, like something inquisitive. His body ached in a dozen places, begging his mind not to make it move. His eyes fluttered open and he gasped, sitting up. Something to his right scurried away into the shadows. He realized that he was in a barred cell, not so unlike the brig of his ship, except that this was made of dark gray stone. Even the surface upon which he'd been laid was just an upraised slab of rock. Whatever had been prodding at his face through the bars had gone into the neighboring cell, now out of sight. "Insolent Seadred," he grumbled. "No, traitorous Seadred. Now you've got old Pop-Hop locked in a prison. You'll get your reward for this." A Gukanian guard approached from outside, dressed in a uniform that appeared like black reptilian scales and a flattish, conical, chin-strapped hat. The man's face was square-shaped and pale, but held an aura of darkness as he looked upon Zale with extremely hard and unfriendly eyes. The guard thrust a metal spear halfway into the cell.
Shtikuta!
"Hey!" Zale hopped back and held his hands up. "I don't know your language." Scowling, the guard held a finger to his lips.
Shh!
Zale sat slowly upon the stone bench, and the guard walked off. It was nighttime. He could tell by the soft glow of ring light coming through the thin slit of a window on the back wall of his cell. His breath steamed in the chilly air. He rubbed his arms for warmth and looked into the neighboring cell, where a bunk was mounted above the floor. He felt certain something was hiding underneath. "Hello," he called softly. "Is someone there?" A small, furry, raccoon-like creature slowly walked out from under the bunk. Most of its fur was the color of rust, with white streaks in its face. A handsome, ringed pattern in its bushy tail, and black all about its legs and torso. As it stood upon its hind legs and walked closer to the bars, Zale saw that it was dressed in a white, sleeveless tunic and dark grayish-blue trousers, with a utility belt around its waist. Its ears poked through a dark red bandana, and a golden earring dangled from its left ear. At full height, its head came up to about Zale's midsection. "You're an anthropod, then," Zale said. There weren't many anthropods in Grantrillia, although there was known to be a decent concentration of them in Holbrook, and some of the Crescent's lesser islands. Anthropods came in a large variety of animal species, differentiated from their feral counterparts by traits such as bipedal walking, wearing clothes, and the ability to speak.
Wee wee wee, paparipata,
The creature chittered. Great, Zale thought. The ability to speak intelligibly varied greatly between anthropods. Some spoke with perfect clarity. True to Zale's current streak of luck, this appeared to be one that spoke gibberish. "What was that?" Zale asked. "Slowly now." The critter rubbed at his rust-colored fur.
wee wee,
Then he gestured more broadly to his entire body, adding,
papan,
Pan? Red panda? The creature nodded.
yee, papan, da,
What's your name?
Rakakitacha.
Well, I had to ask, didn't I? Been here long? Rakakitacha held up 2 claws. 2 days? Zale guessed. The red panda shook his head, holding up his 2 claws again, more forceful this time. 2 months? Agitated, the creature stomped the floor.
Wee, rakakakaka.
Okay, Zale said. He lifted his hands to calm the beast. You'll attract the guards wigging out like that. 2 weeks.
Yee.
You must be quite the adventurous little fellow to be in Gukan all by yourself. He shrugged his furry shoulders. Or perhaps you didn't come alone? Rakakitacha shook his head sadly. Zale heard a hinged door swing somewhere beyond. The red panda scurried back into the shadow of his bunk. 2 men approached, including the guard he had previously encountered. They stopped in front of his cell. "You!" snapped the additional man. His face was also squarish and hard, like it could have been chiseled from a block of stone. "Where from?" His words were fast and choppy. Zale sized up the guard and wondered just how heavily fortified this place was. "What is this place?" Zale asked. "I ask questions, not you," the man snapped. "Where from?" "Grantrillia." The man drew an angry breath. "Which nation?" "Tuscany." "Why have you come to Gukan?" "My family lost something valuable in these islands on a prior voyage. I came looking for it. I did not mean to get so close to your mainland." The man hissed through his teeth.
Nothing of your family is here. Tuscany, bah! Your blood is a tainted, filthy stain to our land.
Zale gave a light shrug. "For what it's worth, my father was from Karangar."
Your father was a dog.
Anatomically speaking, I would probably look much different if that were true.
Quiet, dog! Your fate will be decided by our judge. All men die.
His mouth stretched into a wicked grin.
Some men die sooner. Some more fun to watch.
The 2 men walked away. As the night deepened, so did the cold, and Zale found himself shivering upon the stone slab. He glanced into the neighboring cell and saw that the anthropanda was asleep, curled into a ball upon the bunk. The little fuzzball actually has a blanket, he realized.
Psst,
Zale said. Rakakitacha drowsily lifted his head. "Hey, buddy, you wouldn't mind lending old Pop-Pop that blanket, would you?" Zale flinched as the red panda bared his teeth and unleashed a series of irate, high-pitched chatters that could easily have been curse words in some animalistic language. "Okay," Zale whispered. "Cool your kettle. I was just asking." Knowing there'd be no sleep for him, he kept himself upright. "Right fine mess I've got myself into. We were going after Luxorite, you know. It was decided. One quick stint to Karangar, One quick stint to Acadia. Done. But I brought us here instead. Got myself worked up over a prize of legend, you might say. He was met with silence, but the sound of his own voice was soothing, so he continued. So close to that mastery bar. All I really wanted was to spend more time with my wife. She's more patient than any man deserves. I wanted to spend more time with my grandchildren, be a better father, maybe even find some kind of higher purpose for my life than just retrieving valuables for high-paying clients. He half smirked. Although, don't get me wrong, I do like the high-paying clients. They want to spend the cash, I'll find the stash. That's me, always helping others. Still, there was not a sound from the other cell. I'm not even worried about getting out of here, to be honest. It's more a matter of when. The gale always finds an opening to breeze through. Not really soon, though that ratbag Rummy will beat me to the bar. Or will neither one reach it before the deadline, and the kingdom will make it that much more unreachable. He sighed. In the end, it's all about serving the kingdom until you're too feeble to do any more. Then you just hobble along till you're dead. More silence. He looked sidelong in the other cell and saw that Rakakiticha was staring at him. You probably don't even know what I'm saying, Zale said. Zale allowed himself to lie down, uncomfortable as it was. Occasionally he drifted off to sleep, only to shiver and jolt awake. At some point, while straddling that line between sleep and consciousness, he felt an increase of warmth around him. He opened his eyes and realized that the tattered, woolen yet wonderfully comfortable blanket had been laid over him. He smiled, warmed by more than the blanket, and closed his eyes to find rest. Zale sprang awake, the blanket sliding to the floor of his cell. "Boomer!" Zale said with a snap of his fingers. Rakakiticha gave him a sideways look, chittering in tones that Zale took for grumbling. "That's what I'm calling you," Zale said. "I'm sure where you come from, your Raka name is the norm. It's not just you. I make new names for lots of people. That's just part of the charm of Pop-Pop." Boomer fisted one of his paws, scowling. It was hard to tell if he was actually angry or just making a show. "Boom-boom-boom!" He hissed with laughter, something borderline maniacal. "Yee!" "Ah, I dare say you like that." Zale jumped at the sound of impact. It came from underneath the floor. Having no idea what was happening, he reasoned the safest place was atop the raised stone slab and flung himself upon it. Moments later, pieces of the floor crumbled away around the front and middle part of the cell. The head of a large hammer pounded through. Fump's familiar face popped up from the hole, white dust from the floor in his ginger hair. "Fump!" Zale shouted. "Ah, I told you guys this was the right place!" Yancey shouted below. "What's up, Captain? We were just passing through. Thought you might like to join us." "You thought right, sir. How in blazes did you get here?" Zale peered through the hole and saw that Fump was propped up by Jensen and Hookney. "Yancey!" Jensen called from below. "Hurry up!" "Come on, Cap, we'll help you down," said Yancey. "Hope you don't mind making this a quick getaway." "That's the best kind," Zale replied, lowering himself into the hole. He looked back. Boomer was holding the bars of his cell and chittering softly, a longing look in those dark, beady eyes. Zale turned to his men. "Men, the anthropod is coming with us." "We don't have any way to get under that cell, sir. This place is very strangely built, like it was just carved out of a massive outcrop. We just barely got to yours. Do you want to try the hammer?" "That'll be lots of noisy banging," Hookney said. "Captain!" Jensen dug in his pockets. "Here, try this." He tossed Zale something small, round, and gray. It was the Resolite Zale had reprimanded him for having. "Stand back, Boomer." Zale stretched out the substance until it was much thinner. "This about right?" Pull it a bit more, sir, Jensen said. Then hold it steady a few moments. Zale followed the instructions and soon sawed away at the bars. It took agonizing minutes to finally clear a large enough space for Boomer to fit through. The anthro-panda chirped in triumph and jumped into the hole. Thump caught him. Zale promptly followed, carefully lowered by his crew. I can't believe we haven't been discovered by now, Zale said as they made their way through some rocky, winding passages. Fulgur and the rest of the crew have most of the fort's forces preoccupied outside, Jensen said. That man's got some wild sorcery in his bones, Thump said. Comes in useful. Boomer halted, staring into a room off the passageway.
Raka-raka-bokaka-ka!
He made a peculiar aiming motion with his arms before darting into the room. What's he doing? Jensen asked.
Boomer!
Zale called. We've got to move! A minute later, the critter returned bearing the smallest crossbow Zale had ever seen and wearing a bandolier loaded with tiny bolts. He had also stuffed a small cutlass into his belt.
Ba-boom! Ba-boom! Ka-ka-ka!
Boomer cackled with a riotous grin. The little blighter's armed to the teeth, Yancey said with a laugh. And with teeth! This way! Hookney bellowed, leading them onward. Some winding passages later, they finally emerged at the ground level of what indeed appeared to be a towering rock formation. Fulgur's map was tried and true, Jensen said. The fort behind them was at the top of a gently sloping hill covered in feathery reed grass. To their right was a small grove of trees, and to their left a broad expanse of land which leveled off along the bank of a river. They jogged downhill toward the open land. In the field ahead of them, about a dozen men were locked in combat. Zale saw the occasional burst of light, knowing it came from Fulgur's dagger. The Queenie was anchored in the river beyond, close enough to the bank that a gangway had been lowered from portside. We went full sail, Jensen said. Me at the helm, Casper and Miles watched from the beams, Yvette from below, and we navigated those islets as if we'd known them our whole lives. Wasn't long enough before we spotted land in the river mouth, Thump said. We didn't really know if that's where they'd gone with you, Captain, but we also didn't know that they hadn't. Plus, that's where we needed to go per the map. You piloted through the islets, Jensen? Zale asked. I admit, I'm pleasantly surprised. Thank you, sir, Jensen replied, beaming. What about Starlina? Is she okay? Safe aboard the ship, sir. They broke southward toward a scraggly forest of evergreens, intending to give the battle a wide berth. That way they could get closer without being seen and join their comrades along the riverbank. That fortress must have been lightly manned, Zale said, breathing heavy. But if we keep this up for long, the might of their army will be upon us. Grimstone or not, we need to put this land to our backs. 3 of the Gukanian soldiers noticed Zale and his comrades as they came out from the trees and moved along the river. Zale knew that he was the slow one of their group, and he felt much inner gratitude as they remained close, matching their pace to his. Jensen, Thump, and Hookney drew steel as the soldiers sprinted toward them. To Zale, the soldiers' conical hats made them appear something like running tent stakes, and their black, scale-like armor looked uniquely unbreathable. The cries of Zale's battle-tested crew dominated the air. For the Queenie! Shouted Thump. For Murdoch! Yelled Jensen. Thump glanced at Jensen, then to Zale. Well, naturally by extension. With the composure of someone in a training exercise, he lifted his blade against a soldier. Zale felt utterly exposed with no weapon. Moving with deft agility, the Gukanians wielded short, one-handed, double-edged swords. He heard a bizarre, high-pitched sort of gurgling sound from behind. Boomer darted ahead of him in a blur and leaped into the battle with blinding, animalistic aggression. He sunk his claws into the face of one Gukanian, causing the man to scream and flail. With surprising strength, he whipped the man's neck sideways with a crack and jumped, spinning the soldier limply to the ground. Boomer whirled into another soldier like a flying squirrel soaring between tree limbs, drawing his cutlass in midair and slashing the man's throat. Before that man hit the ground, Boomer had pulled himself onto the soldier's conical helmet, drew his mini crossbow, and aimed a bolt directly between the remaining soldiers' eyes. The Anthropanda had subdued all 3 soldiers without ever touching the ground.
Ba-boom!
He cackled upon landing, reloading his crossbow. "Holy hell," breathed Thump. "He's a sprightly little fella," said Zale. He bent slightly forward as though speaking to a favorite pet. "Who's gonna help old Pop-Pop kick some ass?"
Rakakita-cha! Ka-ka-ka! Yee-yee!
Boomer cheered, Zale chuckling with delight. "Captain!" Fulgur shouted from down the riverbank. The rest of the crew had managed to prevail against the remaining soldiers, but it would be short-lived solace. Fulgur and Dippy motioned toward the fortress, where a platoon of easily 50 soldiers marched out in perfect square formation, their black uniforms glinting in the sunlight. "Capital rescue, crew," Zale said. All of Zale's officers and most of his crew had disembarked to fight the battle. The Queenie was right beside them along the river. Just to be in its presence again gave Zale a profound feeling of relief. Zale could practically feel the steps of the Gukanians marching toward them. His crew had beaten the odds on many a mission, but he feared pushing their luck too far. "Hell's fury is upon us," Zale said. "I say let the Grimstone wait for another day. Let's turn from this place, quickly now." The crew exchanged glances. Dippy stepped up.
"With all the greatest respect, sir, we came for the Grimstone and we want to leave with the Grimstone." "We found the pointed structure on Fulgur's map," said Casper. "There's a riddle on it he says only you can solve."
"It's more of a monument," Fulgur said, "and it is not the location of the Grimstone as we thought might be the case. It is more of a starting point."
"It's just within that forest."
Casper pointed northward, to an area thick with trees. "Fulgur explained it to us," said Yvette, "how the Grimstone's filled with power against the light, how it's rightfully yours to claim. It seems only you can retrieve it, Captain. Not to mention," Fulgur said, "that Gukan is a haven of the void. I can feel it everywhere in this land, stronger than I ever anticipated. It is safer anywhere other than here, even if it must be with Vidimir. At least then it's where the Order can keep careful watch." They were out of time anyway. Now the soldiers sprinted toward them, running with swords raised, probably less than a minute away. "I hope you have a real ripper of a trick up your sleeves, Fulgur," Zale said. Fulgur pulled back his shoulders and rolled his neck, looking fully confident. "I've been known to play a trick or two, sir." "Father!" Starlina shouted. Zale turned toward the Queenie, where she stood by the rail. "Starlina, get to safety within the ship," Zale shouted. "Take this first." She picked up his coat from the deck, wrapped it around his hat and saber, and tossed them over the rail. They flew home to their target, right into Zale's awaiting arms. When he'd donned his coat and feathered tricorn, he was suddenly more than the man he'd been moments before. He was Zale the Gale Murdoch, captain of Murdoch's mates and scourge of the seas. He drew his saber and pointed it aloft. He roared, charging forward. Steely clangs sang in the air. Zale quickly took down 2 enemies with the strength and precision of his upper body. Shim wielded a battle axe in broad circles with his one arm, always an amazing sight. Thump gave up the last of his pocket sand, stinging several eyes before taking men down with the sword. Beep and Shrew were back to back, Beep pummeling with a mace and Shrew swiping with a cutlass. Boomer sprang from face to face, slashing with his claws and shooting his tiny arrows. From the deck of the Queenie, crossbows and ballista bolts speared the opposition who were not too close to crewmates. Zale knew they could not keep this up for long. There were simply too many soldiers, and they fought with militant discipline that would soon outlast his scrappy crew. A fallen sword suddenly sprung up and jabbed into the ground. It was an utterly baffling sight. Out of Zale's periphery, he saw another, then another, and another. He turned to see Fulgur directing them with his arms. What the devil is he up to now? Zale wondered. A bright electrical ball of energy formed in midair ahead of Fulgur, confounding those soldiers nearby. Jagged tines of energy, like miniature lightning bolts, zapped from the ball, guided by Fulgur. One by one, soldiers were struck down by the bolts, causing an epic stir among the Gukanians. Then the energy extended out to the upraised swords like lightning rods, expanding the electrical field. From each sword hilt shot additional zaps of lightning. Soldiers screamed all around them. Zale's crew steadily backed away, some even dropping to the ground to stay clear of the attack. By the time this maneuver settled down, there were less than a dozen soldiers remaining, all of them looking frazzled. Zale's crew sprang forth to take them down. Where was that move earlier? Zale asked Fulgur. Fulgur flashed a tired smile. If I am not careful, the overuse of power will expend a feeble mortal body like mine. Such electrical and magnetic forces take much to conjure, as you yourself might yet come to realize, Captain. Ha! If I could do half of something like that, I truly would be a legend. A similar etheretical affinity is within you. Augustus Macpherson was a renowned fielder in his day. Murdoch's brow furrowed. Are you saying that my forefather had powers the same as yours? That and more. You see, it is in your ancestry, in your blood. He held out his Novidian dagger, keeping it still until its white light pulsated around it. In battle, it was a thing to be awed and feared. But here, as it rested in Fulgur's palm, it seemed to Zale more like something heavenly, something ethereal. Please, Captain, Fulgur said. Now will you take hold of it? Zale narrowed his eyes slightly. Why? It is perfectly safe. Zale reached for it cautiously, finally curling his fingers around the Annalace's grip. There was nothing all that unusual about its touch. It was light and easy to wield, very efficient as a weapon, and undoubtedly sharp. Yet there was a strange sort of warmth which flowed into his body. It feels, Zale considered the sensation, almost familiar in some way, like closeness or something intimate. And its glow, Fulgur said. See how it remains within your grasp. The Novidian, it seems, is connecting with you. Curious case. Zale felt awestruck. This, then, grants your powers? Fulgur tapped his chest. The power ultimately resides within the being. For many it is dormant, locked away. Novidian might awaken it, and certainly it is a helpful conduit to direct and strengthen the output. But even without it, there is power. Zale offered the dagger back to Fulgur, feeling a strange reluctance to do so. That is very unlike anything I've experienced. Fulgur took the blade and glanced at Zale's new Anthropanda companion. I see you have managed to rescue a helpless, furry little anthropod. Well, Zale chuckled, I wouldn't exactly call him helpless. Turns out that Resolite Jensen had did just the trick to set him free. Fulgur placed a hand on Zale's shoulder, leaning in. Captain, I feel I should tell you something. I know you believed that the Resolite in Jensen's possession was due spoils to you and your crew, and you reprimanded the young man for having it. What you might not know, what he later confided to me, was that he had purchased the material back from your past client with his own share of that voyage's payout. It was not stolen. Zale felt lost for words. That is very good to know. Thank you for telling me, Fulgur. Fulgur gave Zale's shoulder a firm pat. The time for you to go is now. We will hold any further opposition. Go forth to the monument and retrieve the grim stone entrusted to your name. I am sure that Elo goes with you. Zale adjusted his hat and walked off. Boomer following close behind.